So a pretty major event has just occurred. Warner Brothers Discovery is going to be split now into two separate companies. And this is all, of course, because they have a financial crisis going on. They are in debt, and there are some streaming issues going on as well. Pretty huge. Pretty damn huge situation. Not entirely unprecedented or entirely a surprising situation, but it's a huge one. So let's take a look at this. Please do hit subscribe, turn those bell notifications on. And this article, I'll leave a link down below, but it just says this. In a dramatic move that signals the beginning of the end for legacy cable conglomerates, Warner Brothers Discovery has announced plans to split into two separate publicly traded companies by mid-2026. So literally 12 months' time. The announcement, made Monday morning, that's today, marks a stunning reversal for a company once seen as a symbol of media empire consolidation. So, under the restructuring, Warner Brothers Discovery will separate into a streaming and studios company, which will be led by David Zaslav, and then a global networks company, which will be headed by current CFO Gunnar Wiedenfels. So the streaming and studios arm will house Warner Brothers Pictures, Warner Brothers Television, DC Studios, HBO, and the Max streaming platform. Meanwhile, the global networks business will still focus and retain the cable-focused assets, including CNN, TNT Sports, Discovery Channel, TBS, and other linear networks, which I think is quite interesting because David Zaslav came over from Discovery, didn't he? So, this is a really interesting situation. It is effectively what they've done is they merged. I remember when the Discovery Warner Brothers merger happened. They merged. He was supposed to turn it around. Seemingly, this is them just decoupling from each other. But restructuring both businesses in a way which then means, I guess, both are better positioned moving forwards. It's pretty crazy, actually. So Zaslav called the move a strategic pivot. So he said this, quote, "By operating as two distinct and optimized companies in the future, we're empowering these iconic brands with the sharper focus and strategic flexibility they need to compete most effectively in today's evolving media landscape," which is true. There's no lies detected there. But it says this, but behind the corporate spin lies a much harsher reality. Warner Brothers Discovery is drowning in debt, which is true. I mean, that is true. But Warner Brothers always had debt. So stuck, I say always, recently. Stuck between a crumbling cable model and an unforgiving streaming market, this breakup may be its last best hope to survive. So Warner Brothers Discovery was formed in 2022 when AT&T spun off Warner Media and merged it with Discovery Inc. That was them selling it, basically, in a $43 billion deal. The merger was billed as the birth of a new entertainment giant, uniting prestige content with reality TV, sports, and cable news brands. What followed was a mess, which arguably is true. In the years since, Warner Brothers Discovery has struggled to reduce debt, grow its streaming base, and navigate a collapsing cable ecosystem. As of its most recent earnings report, the company carries over $38 billion in gross debt, with net debt hovering around $34 billion. So they did reduce it. You know, it was 43 initially. They did reduce it. You've got to give them that. They did reduce it by effectively $10 billion. 9. 10 if you're being charitable. So that burden has a persistent drag on the stock and on operations despite aggressive cost cutting. And then there was obviously like ratings downgrade as well. So in May, S&P Global cut Warner Brothers Discovery's credit rating to junk status, citing concerns over declining revenues, high leverage, and the company's exposure to a shrinking pay TV landscape. According to S&P's report, Warner Brothers Discovery's leverage is expected to stay above 4.3x EBITDA through the end of the year, far beyond the 3.5 limit for investment grade credit. So the downgrade increased borrowing costs and served as a public red flag to shareholders and partners alike. And the backdrop helps explain why Warner Brothers Discovery is now taking a sledgehammer to its own empire. But again, I will say this. They were always kind of going to be doing this from what I... When they initially announced the merger, it always seemed like this was the focus in the end. Like they talked about turning it around and then just getting rid, basically. So though it was pitched as a move to focus, the real purpose of the split is to isolate the profitable or potentially profitable parts of the company from its more toxic assets, which is true. But then also there's some assets there which are not toxic and they are still profitable. So yeah, protect the crown jewels, dump the deadweight, which yeah, true. The streaming and studios company would include the Warner Brothers film division, HBO, HBO Max, and major franchise IPs like Harry Potter, DC, and Dune. This is the segment that Zaslav wants to sell to investors as a lean, IP-driven entertainment powerhouse, capable of taking on Netflix, Disney, and Amazon. Which it could. It could, absolutely, with the right leadership. But it still has major challenges. Max, soon to be rebranded back as HBO Max, for God's sake, remains a distant fourth in the streaming race, and recent box office misfires have raised questions about the viability of the company's franchise slate. Well, yeah, they need to stop, catering to morons and actually make some good stuff and, sell some tits and ass for once. So the Global Networks unit will take on the legacy cable brands CNN, TNT, TBS, and Discovery, which have seen sharp revenue declines in recent years due to cord cutting and dwindling ad dollars. TNT Sports and CNN in particular have been costly and underperforming. CNN has faced several leadership shakeups and slumping ratings, while sports rights fees continue to rise as viewership falls. So by placing these assets in a separate entity, Warner Brothers Discovery is effectively walling off the liabilities. The new Global Networks company may face further cost-cutting, consolidation, or even eventual liquidation of certain channels, which I think is probably going to be the aim, to be fair. And then you'll just be left with things like Discovery. I think that's probably what's going to happen. So, yeah. What does this mean for shareholders? Well, the market responded quickly to the news. Warner Brothers Discovery stock jumped more than 9% in early trading Monday, today, as investors applauded what they see as a value unlocking move, which, I mean, it is. It is. By splitting the company, Warner Brothers Discovery can potentially allow the more promising half to shine on its own without being dragged down by the hemorrhaging cable business. Short-term gain, long-term, both new companies will face an uphill battle, which, I don't know. I mean, it is a short-term gain, but I actually think only the cable one will face an uphill battle. I actually think what you'll see now is Warner Brothers doing all right, to be fair. I could be completely wrong, by the way, obviously. So there you go. I don't have much else to say, really. This just another shocking situation. I say shocking, it's not massively shocking, but shocking to a degree, where you look at these kind of giants and you just go, well, their time's over, isn't it, really? Like, the media landscape has changed so dramatically. Their time is done. Like, Warner Brothers, cable, these kind of things. Legacy media as a whole is dwindling. It's dying out. So this is pretty major. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Take care. Bye-bye now.